For example, Maimonides writes that the whole story about the Garden of Eden never took place. It's metaphorical. He writes this about the Chamor, the ass which spoke in Bilam, in Bamidbar. He says, it's a dream. And there is, even in Kabbalah, there is a whole concept that everything in the Torah is somewhere metaphorical. Some of it may happen here in this world, some may not have happened. It happened somewhere else. As you know, this is a lecture about heresy. I love heresy. Again, be aware that this lecture takes 6 hours. Which is a problem, because I will have to do it in the amount of time which Limud is giving me. So you will have to read between the lines, and a lot of it. Now, it is not a normal thing for an Orthodox rabbi to love heresy. Doesn't seem to fit. And it may be that on the end of this lecture, you will say, Rabbi Cardozo is not an Orthodox rabbi. He's a heretic himself. That's fine with me, because then I will have made history. I will be the first Orthodox heretic in history. Perhaps I have said this to some of my colleagues, we should start an Orthodox heretic movement. We will only accept rabbis with long beards, pious, drinking Chalaf Yisrael, and obviously not carrying in London on Shabbat. Heresy. It's a marvelous topic. I've spoken about this before here in Limud some years ago. And perhaps the best way to start is to remind you there is a marvelous book written by a great, I think, British philosopher, fantastic writer, by the name of Alasdair MacIntyre, who wrote together with another famous man by the name of Paul Ricoeur a booklet, which is called The Religious Significance of Atheism. The religious significance of not believing in God. I will not discuss that book, but it is a marvelous way of introducing my topic, because I agree with one point here. There is tremendous religious significance to heresy. It is not for nothing there. And I'm speaking as a religious thinker. One of the reasons behind that is that normally we are involved in condemning his heresy. We don't want to hear about it. But I believe that heresy is a fantastic thing, because it means that I have to rethink things again. I get challenged. And that's great. Because if I have to again start to think about my beliefs, it can only mean that I deepen out my beliefs. By getting challenged, you have to go deeper into the stuff. It doesn't stay artificial, it doesn't stay superficial. I myself, some of you know this, I'm actually indebted to my religious life, for the lack of a better word, to a real man who was called in Jewish history a heretic, who came from my country, where I used to be living and where I was born, Amsterdam. 17th century, the famous, or if you want to say the infamous, Baruch Spinoza, Benedictus Spinoza, one of the greatest thinkers in the whole of the philosophy which man have produced over the thousands of years. You may know that he broke away from the Jewish tradition, turned against it, wrote some marvelous heresy, which I used to study with my father in my younger days, when I was not at all involved in any religious experience or any religious life. He attacked the Jewish tradition, left and right. And he made me religious. There was a time, I hope you understand what I'm saying, that I was froom. Today I'm no longer froom. I'm just satisfied to be a little religious. I hope I am, or at least I'm trying very hard. I mentioned yesterday somewhere else that I have never met any religious person in my life. All what I can say is that I have met people who have been trying very hard to be religious. And that's true about myself as well. And Spinoza was the man who put me on that particular derech, on that particular way of thinking and living. Because when I started to read him and he attacking the Jewish tradition, I had to ask myself, is there any response to him? Did anybody write about this? And I had a great opportunity in Amsterdam, where I was born, to speak to a few people who knew Spinoza, had read him carefully, and at the same time were able to guide me in finding some responses against Spinoza. And I realized that I had been missing something, and that something is the Jewish tradition. And I needed to know more about it. I wanted to hear the other side of this story. Why do you walk out? What was the reason behind that? Was he right about the Jewish tradition? Was he fair what he had to say about it? Or did he make statements which were really not correct? I came to the conclusion that Spinoza is a fantastic philosopher, but he had it wrong about a few things. And because of him, I therefore dwelt into the Jewish world, into Jewish tradition, started to think about it. And I would suggest the following. If in 120 years, as we Jews say, all of us are no longer here, but we are up there, and you meet Spinoza, tell him that I thank him terribly for what he did to me. I don't know, some people tell me that he will be found in hell. I'm not sure about it, but in case you find him in Olam Haba, in heaven, then one of the reasons why he's there is because of me. He brought me back to the Jewish tradition. I need to thank him for that, and he will have to thank me for having saved not his life, but his death. I want to start with a quotation of Louis Jacobs, with whom I disagree, but I laugh. I've read all his books very carefully. I never had the opportunity in my life to meet him, which is a great pity. I think he was a marvelous person. I disagree. Loads of issues which he wrote about. He was a great scholar. But there are obviously things where I do agree with him, which I think were very profound what he had to say. You remember the Jacobs affair many years ago, when he was told to leave the Orthodox community by the chief rabbi. And somebody sent me not so long ago his farewell speech which he gave in Jews College. The Orthodox